I don't think many of us have to think too long about our answers to that question. For my part, I spent that night across the street from here, in the basement of Morgan House, watching the results come in on CNN with a group of friends. We were so proud at the start of that night. We knew that our country had stared panic and hatred in the face, that it had walked the knife's edge of authoritarianism, and we were so certain that it had turned back from the brink. We were proud of America at the start of that night. Someone even passed around little plastic American flags so that we could wave them when the results came in and our faith in our country was vindicated. Well, by 2 a.m, the results were in. My friends and I went our separate ways, and we walked home through the night in bewilderment and betrayal. And all that was left of all our pride was a pile of little plastic flags abandoned on the concrete floor. We were broken-hearted that night, or at least I was. In a way, I still am. And I think we were all of us asking similar questions, too. How could this have happened? How could we all have been so wrong about our own country? But though the questions may have been the same, we all had different reasons for asking them. So real quick, I'd like to share mine. My parents work as legal advisors to reform and resistance organizations in corrupt or totalitarian countries. I grew up quite substantially overseas. I spent a lot of time in some pretty unstable places. And when you're in a bombed-out building in Liberia or a refugee camp on the Thai-Burma border, America doesn't look quite like it does from here. It looks different. It looks, with all its sins, like a city on a hill. When you are living in the shadow of tyranny, the American flag does not stand for a people or a territory. It stands for ideals, for principles that are just as important to people in Liberia and Burma and Vietnam as they are to us, because liberty knows no border and justice carries no passport. These American ideals transcend nationality and they transcend culture. And I know that because people of 100 nationalities and 1,000 cultures are dying for those principles all over the world as we speak. I have seen these men and women come out of the war-torn jungle in Burma to pass one day in peace, to learn the law, to muss up my hair as if I were their own son. And then I have seen them walk back into the shadow of death because their hearts hold fast to the same ideals that I see when I look at that flag. And so my America is not the birthright of a lucky few. In the ideals for which it stands, in the principles that it declares, it is the promise of hope for all mankind. But, as it turns out, not everybody believes that. There are plenty of folks who think that liberty is just a cultural construct and that justice only applies to people like us. To these folks, nothing stands above culture, and so the cultural group becomes the only thing deserving of loyalty. Americans, they say, are just one more tribe among many, and so why shouldn't we let the rest of the world go to hell? Why shouldn't we put America first? And now it's time for those of us on the left to admit our responsibility here. When we claimed that truth is a cultural construct, the alt-right took us at our word. When we said that liberty is just a linguistic concept, the white supremacists believed us. When we said that the meaning of justice varies from place to place, the neo-Nazis said, "You bet." Folks, when we gave up on the universality of our ideals, we gave the most selfish and the most hateful people in our society all the moral justification they need to exclude anyone they want. And that much is on us, because it was so easy. Relativism let us dodge fights. It let us agree to disagree and go along to get along. It offered us the luxury of going through life without the courage of our convictions. And now, here we are. Because the truth is, you can't have multiculturalism unless you have ideals that stand above culture. If everything is culturally determined, then we really are just a bunch of tribes sharing space. And there's no reason why I shouldn't put my tribe and my culture first. It's only if we can eat different food and wear different clothes and speak different languages and yet believe in the same ideals that this republic of ours means anything at all. In the most diverse society in history, nothing short of absolute transcendence can serve as common ground. And so America is either united by universal truths, or it is not united at all. But I get why this may make some of you uncomfortable. I do. Because when all is said and done, what I am asking you to do today is to take a leap of faith, to believe that our ideals are not relative, and to hold those truths to be self-evident to all. I am asking you to believe that at our best, we are not just making this stuff up. That when we talk about liberty and justice, we have our finger on the moral pulse of the universe, and we can feel its heart beat with love. And as with any claim of transcendence, I don't have any evidence to back me up. Not a shred. It sounds nice, but I can't prove a word of this whole story. But I don't need to. See, I'm not asking you to believe in a book or a creed. I'm not asking you to accept the doctrinal authority of any man, and certainly not that of a 23-year-old kid from the Midwest. The certainty I'm asking for does not come from submission to anything in the whole wide world. I'm asking for a leap of faith, but faith is not obedience. Faith is a bell. Listen. Can you hear it? It's the bell that rings inside when you pass the homeless guy on the street and look away and know the touch of shame. It's the bell that rings inside when you turn on the evening news and see the children's eyes staring back at you out of the screen and you feel sick to your stomach. It's the bell that rings inside when you stop by the side of the highway to help a total stranger change a tire and you can't stop smiling for hours afterwards. It's the bell that rings inside every time you feel moved to give away your hard-earned time or money to feed the hungry, or to clothe the poor, or to bring just a little more hope and mercy into these dark times. And it is the bell you heard ringing way down inside on that night back in November when you knew in the place too deep for words that it should not be thus. You didn't think it was wrong. It wasn't your opinion. And even now, I don't have to prove it to you, because in that moment months ago, down in your soul, you already knew. And that's faith. For some of us, it's been a long time since we listened for that bell. We made a dogma of relativism here in this place. We held as self-evident that all values were created equal. We questioned the very existence of such a thing as truth. And so that bell inside, the bell that speaks by faith of freedom, it grew old, and it rusted, and maybe it even cracked, a little like another bell down in Philadelphia, a great bronze bell that looks like it will never ring again. And yet we do hear it. We hear it ringing still, faint but persistent deep inside, every time love moves our souls to outrage or to grace. We hear it ringing even in the midst of our broken country and in the depths of our broken hearts. Now, even now, we can still hear the bell if we listen. And so when you leave here tonight, that is what I want you to do. I want you to listen for the bell that rings out the truth within. Because if we listen, and if we act on what we hear, then our broken bell for the broken-hearted will ring out the louder with every passing day, little by little, soul by soul, until it rings even in the hardest heart with a clarity that blinds the eye of hatred and a beauty that mutes the voice of fear. And on that morning, when we listen and we act, we will hear our bell ring hope from the empty mills of North Adams all the way to the defiled waters of Standing Rock. It'll ring courage from our little town meeting all the way to the marble dome of our spineless Congress. It'll ring justice down the halls of our teeming prisons and through the corridors of our struggling schools. It'll ring freedom from the immigrant ghettos of Paris to the war-torn jungles of Burma. And it will ring love. Love from the steps of the Capitol, love from the books of our laws, love from the bench of every courtroom and the pulpit of every church and the hearth of every home where this flag flies, this little plastic flag that I have kept with me every day since that dark night. Not for what it was, nor for what it is, but for what it yet might be, if we live up at last to the pledge that we offer it, the hope of every nation and of every generation, the prayer of liberty and justice for all. Thank you.